When I was a kid, I was bored with school, but I was fascinated by games. I remember one day in class, I'd just been recently introduced to this new game called Warcraft, and I quickly became obsessed with it. And I was bored in class, so I started doodling. Before I knew it, I was drawing out the current level that I was stuck on in the game, and I drew the position of all the forests and gold mines, the rivers and bridges, the position of the two camps. And then I started strategizing. I started figuring out where I wanted to place each of my buildings to maximize my resource use, how many guys I would produce before I would expand to the second gold mine. I became so obsessed in this, I lost track of time and the class ended and realized I had no idea what happened in class that day, but a great idea of what to do next in the level. And looking back on that, the one thing I remember most of all was feeling guilty in class that day. I felt like I had slacked off some way. And this was, to me, something that angered me later. I felt like here I was in math class doing an economic analysis of resource use, taking into account the geography of a landscape, and I felt bad about it. I mean, no kid should feel bad about doing math in a math class, but I was doing game math. I wasn't doing school math. And that raised an interesting issue for me. Is game math something that's valuable, something we should be doing in school?
Since I've been a kid, a lot's happened. There's been a lot of research done into the learning that's involved in games. And at this point, it's not really a question of whether games teach us, it's a question of how much and in what depth. But we have had a few good stories. There's been a few commercial games like Civilization, SimCity, and Portal 2 that have been used to teach valuable concepts in schools, which really showed us that games that are made for fun can also be used for learning. I think to change schools, we also need to show the opposite side of the coin, that games that are made for learning can also be fun.
I think the best way to prove an idea is to stop arguing about whether it's possible and just do it. That's why we made a series of games called Ethers. Each game in this series is a 2D physics simulation game, this simple sandbox style gameplay. There's simple goals you need to accomplish, like breaking blocks and collecting coins, and the way you accomplish those goals is by manipulating the motion of balls. The way that you manipulate them depends on the physics being simulated. So for example, in the gravity ether, you tap to add and remove black holes to create gravitational fields, which will affect the motion of planets. The more games we make, the more ways we prove that learning and playing are two sides of the same coin. Yeah, we want to bring games into schools, but more importantly, we want to change schools. Right now, there are just too few examples of really good learning games, games kids would keep playing outside the classroom. We need to make more of those games. That's why we're asking for your help, to help us make the next game in the Ether series, and to help prove that a playful game is good for your minds and a mindful game is good for play.